Open the door or I'm gonna throw rocks through your windows, you dumb whore.
I never played Amnesia as a series, outside of 15 minutes in the Dark Descent on PS4 and seeing maybe 2 or 3 playthroughs of PewDiePie back in the day.
Oh man. Venus!
I'm a big fan of horror games though, so I love playing them, but for the most part, Amnesia has been on my backlog because I prefer more survival horror most of the time. But when they announced The Bunker, I knew I would have to play it. It ended up getting stuck on my shelf due to some other big releases that year back in 2023, but I eventually picked it up during a sale. Even once purchased, it remained on the backlog nonetheless though. As a true gamer does, there was one day where I was bored and decided to finally give it a try. Before I get too far into this, let's just say I enjoyed it. Expect some spoilers, and also please hit that like and subscribe button for me. The Bunker started off as a DLC idea for Amnesia Rebirth in 2021. It took about 2 years to fully develop the game. That's honestly a pretty quick development time, but the vision was pretty defined. It was mainly inspired by Alien Isolation, Resident Evil 2 Remake, and the movie 1917. In this video, I'm basically going to go through the game through my eyes as a new player to the series, while noting key systems or choices as to how we get to them. Then we're going to wrap it up with a story summary and my overall thoughts. So, let's get into Amnesia, The Bunker. We open up with a quote from Romain Delphi about surviving this war. Then, we are instantly thrown onto the battlefield, sprinting for a nearby trench. We are joined by a guy named Lambert, yelling at us as we dive into the trench. Instantly, the game has set up a very tense situation. Given that there are trenches at all, we can instantly surmise the game is taking place during World War I. The game uses the trench sequence to start teaching you about some of the mechanics of the game. It introduces us to the gun, which is new to the Amnesia series, and it's very deliberate and slow. You have to physically place every bullet in the chamber, one at a time, and it takes both hands. The controls are intentionally slow. They want you to think about stuff before you use it. This will end up being a big deal. After learning about breaking doors with bricks, we come on to another section of the trench where we start taking fire from German soldiers. This is where we get saved by Lambert and learn another key detail about the gun. The used shells have to actually be removed. This means it looks like in the gun, you have more bullets, even if they've already been spent. The game then teaches you about crafting as you heal up your bullet wounds with a cloth. We blow some shit up and eventually reach the end of the trench, and then we start getting gassed. We again get saved by Lambert, who had a gas mask just in time to save us. As we fade to black, we get a little bit of light as we get some voice lines shared between Lambert and Henry.
Keep that roll, my friend. There you have it, huh? Ah, fate's a bastard. I'm on patrol tonight then. C'est la vie.
We learn that they're playing some kind of game to decide who will go on patrol. As we fade away into a new scene, there appears to have been a time skip. We are in what looks to be no man's land, with dead bodies everywhere. We come across a big sinkhole that Lambert has fallen into. They fade to black, and we hear Henry save him and then give him some water as we attempt to rescue him. As we reach the top of the sinkhole and start heading back to the base, we are discovered by some German soldiers who begin firing at us. We get blown up by what looks to be a mine or mortar shell. And then we fade to black looking at Lambert. This concludes the opening in the main tutorial section of the game. The game makes it clear that experimenting and trying different things is very important to the experience, so we'll have to try out what we can. All we really know so far is that two friends are trying to survive the war together any way they can. The next scene opens up with the player character getting out of a cot in what looks to be a clinic. We learn from a nearby note that our player character, Henri Clement, was admitted to the hospital on the 9th of July 1916 in a comatose state. Dr. Jozinski states that he has and considers moving him to a different facility. The area that we are in feels oddly empty and very lonely so far. Things seem to be in a rough shape as well. There's splintered wood and cobwebs everywhere. As we explore further, we find a voice note from Henry alluding to his regret about something happening.
I'm in a state of agony. It cripples my body.
The game also uses this moment to teach us about the flashlight, one of the biggest and most stressful elements of this game. Instead of following the normal horror game trope of using a permanent flashlight that requires batteries, you have a dynamo flashlight. Basically, an infinite light source, but it has to be charged with a certain number of pulls. 1 pull will give you 3 seconds, 2 pulls will give you 30 seconds. 3 pulls gives you a slightly brighter 30 seconds at the cost of being extremely loud. That means you're gonna have to be constantly producing noise to some extent if you want to see where you're going, which at some point making noise is gonna be like praying to an angry god. The best part about this actually is that it is a real tool. Soldiers were using dynamo flashlights in World War I, so this is actually a historical accuracy that lends itself well to solid game design. We also find a note that talks about Sergeant Reynard being torn apart, plus a picture of it that gives some really ominous foreboding. We explore some more, and upon entering the back of the mess hall, we find an injured comrade who is actually still alive. This is Soldat Boisrond. From him, we learn that the upper rank officers blew the exit and ran away. Had to get the hell up out of there. He also mentions a monster hunting for him. He gives us his gun and asks us to end his life before the monster arrives. He tells us to search the pantry for some bullets, but as we turn around, oh. We just caught our first glimpse of the monster, and more importantly, we are completely alone once again. And on top of that, we are now entirely trapped. In less than 15 minutes, the stakes have been raised tremendously. Luckily, with our new gun, we can open up a door that was locked previously and access some new rooms. The first thing that we find is a metal door that unlocks into what will end up becoming our safe house. This room will end up being extremely critically placed throughout the playthrough, as it is one of 2 available save spots in the game on normal difficulty, at least. It contains the map, the storage box, and our best friend, the generator. The generator is your other primary light source throughout the game, however, it is limited by fuel capacity. This means we will have to find fuel throughout the facility to power up the main lights because the lights keep the monster a little bit more passive. Almost like you have a little pet you need to keep behaved. One that can, like, just kill you and probably wants to eat you. Anyway, behaved is a relative term anyway, because it basically just means the monster is less likely to start roaming around and looking for you. After taking a look at the map, we can see that the game is essentially split into 5 different zones. You have the central bunker office quarters kinda in one zone, the soldiers' quarters, the prison, maintenance, and the arsenal. The central location of our safe house definitely implies that we will be coming back here frequently to use the generator and item box. Also, some of the last things we find in the room are some notes and a timer that will allow us to sync to the generator fuel length. One thing this game does insanely well is using the notes or environment to teach mechanics without directly telling you. The note we find mentions the fuel is highly flammable. Nearby, a note also states that rats are eating the bodies, so we must burn them to prevent rats. This tells us a multitude of things. 1, we are going to find man-eating rats. 2, we can use our fuel, our main light resource, to burn things. And 3, you can burn the bodies to prevent rats from coming back. This puts us into a choice of safety of avoiding the monster for the convenience of not having to deal with rats, or using other methods on them. Already this game is getting a little interesting. After finishing up all the key findings in the safe house, we start exploring. We find a note that explains we need to escape the bunker by blowing the exit after the bunker officers blew it, causing a cave-in. This gives us our main goal throughout the game. It's literally just escape the titular bunker. As we walk around, we find that the game is easy to navigate without the map due to the abundance of signage and environmental details. We instantly know which section we are going to as we start towards the officer quarters to explore and find any information left lying around. We find some loot, Some notes talking about how officers are hearing things with an implication that something happened on the night of July 14th to Reynard. Odd. Next, we notice a room with an X on the door. Not too sure what that's supposed to mean, but let's check it out. Oh! So the X basically means trap. You can open it, but expect the monster to start patrolling when he hears a loud noise, light or dark. Upon further exploration, we move some barrels in another room and find someone mauled. It literally looks like a bear got that boy. We find a note on his table talking about some Roman tunnels and mysterious visions. This gives us our first inkling into what could actually be going on. My first thought upon reading this was, oh, they found something they were not meant to find, like a cursed relic. Finding ancient Roman tunnels in France probably isn't that surprising, but having them underground? I'm good there. Rome did occupy modern France, so this is historically plausible. This kind of tells us something bigger and more ancient is at play. Moving on to the next room, we find a note about shooting the beast. This lets us know that we aren't entirely helpless to the beast, and it can actually be deterred from insta-killing us with some good old-fashioned American values. We finish up exploring the rest of the zone with nothing too much of note, so we can go ahead and start making our way to opening the soldiers' quarters and prison area by lifting the lockdown. To lift the lockdown, we need to rotate the wheel that has the gates locked, but as we use the one on there, it literally shatters. So we duck into a nearby vent that is the mission control locker room to find a spare. This opens us up to a long-term side objective for the game. It uses these lockers plus dog tags that are randomly scattered throughout the world to basically hide items for us. This is mainly to encourage exploration, but it also allows us to have optional equipment like the lighter or the gas mask, so we can have some unique solutions to problems later. It is an area we will revisit frequently throughout the playthrough due to the good loot and the unique items. Luckily, someone put a spare wheel in here for the emergency lock so we can finally open up one of those zones. I decided to check out the prison zone first, but really only found some items and a German prisoner with some bolt cutters next to him, before ultimately deciding to turn back and check out the soldier quarters. This is probably one of the biggest singular areas in the game. It has a focus on daisy chaining power switches, connecting to further sections that basically requires you to complete the whole zone to get to the communication radio. By the way, did you remember what I said about trap? This brings us to our first face-to-face encounter with the Beast. I instantly got out of there before I unfortunately learned that he will follow you through zones. After testing out my aim and spiking my BPM, we continue on to finally meet some of those man-eating rats that I mentioned earlier. This area is broken down into two major bunk beds. There's Barracks A and Barracks B, with a few other rooms like security and communications. We need to get into the communications room to get the arsenal door unlock code. That'll allow us to get the dynamite for blowing up the exit. Unfortunately, it is wired through the back side of the facility, so we will have to make our way back to that section. Before I get there, I find out that chair plus door combos are not effective against the beast.
You're ugly, you're disgusting, I'm gonna kill you. Give me $200.
And then after exploring through the barracks, we find Henry's bunker, and we get a note of him alluding to having done something he feels guilty about. We find his dog tag on the bed, which will allow us to open up his locker in the mission area. Moving up to the locker, we crack it open and read Henry's note. This tells us he set up Lambert on the game to determine who would go on patrol. This was the game we heard after the tutorial section during the black screen, but before the single area. He tells us that he is upset because Lambert never returned from patrol. Kind of fucked up thing to do to your homie, but, you know. Plus, I thought we rescued Lambert, but we haven't seen him around. Just the beast get him or something, or... When we head back down to the soldiers' quarters, we find our path blocked. so we try a clever trick with some meat to distract them while we run past. This gets us to the back section that allows us to flip the daisy chain switch to get the communications powered. After finding a randomly spawned key on one of the barrack beds, we head up into comms. In comms, we're able to get the code from Joe Burt, who already left the bunker. He's one of the officers that left. With this, we are now able to open the arsenal. At this point in my playthrough, the map has opened up considerably. You can pretty much go to any location now, assuming you have the tool you need to open it up. I decided to head to maintenance next, because this will get us the locker code that will allow us to access the wrench. The wrench will allow us to take off grates so that we can access some new areas. Upon entering the maintenance area, the beast starts becoming increasingly more aggressive, more likely to roam, and more likely to come out. This will give us the perfect segue into talking about the sound design. The game uses sound extremely effectively. You can often hear the beast walking around through the tunnels in the walls. Sometimes you have moments of the beast waiting near a hole, and you can only hear its breathing and see its breath, just waiting for you to walk by. Almost like a trapdoor spider. The beast also reacts dynamically to all the sounds you produce. That includes just moving items around or lighting your flashlight. Every action and sound has a chance to summon the beast, so you have to be mindful of what you're doing and how much sound it produces.
Just wanted to call and remind you, you don't matter.
This causes the game to have constant micro decisions. Is it really worth getting that better look in the room just to potentially find one note or crafting component? This keeps the tension at a near constant high during the game. Just because the beast isn't actively near you doesn't mean you can't summon him with what you're doing. The game also uses sound as a tool to add ambience. Occasionally, you hear the roaring of a shell striking the ground that rattles the whole base, or soldiers yelling off in the distance, or gunshots. You can hear the squeaking and squelching of the rats devouring something off screen. The audio is fine-tuned to keep the tension as high as possible. There's even a Shepard's audio implementation that the developers talked about. If you don't know, Shepard's audio is basically superimposed sine waves. They trick your brain into thinking you're hearing a rising or descending sound at all times. They use the descending version to replicate the generator losing fuel slowly. When the generator is completely off, they turn the sine waves off. It adds a remembrance and attention when you have the generator going, and it furthers to help the stillness when everything is off. Silence feels heavy. Anyway, getting back to the run at hand. I'm about to start trying to get to the pillbox, and the beast and some rats are gonna try their best to make my job hard. Another important detail I should have mentioned earlier, but if you get damaged and you have not healed, you will leave a blood trail for the beast to follow. You also get sniffed out by some of the rats, and they chase you endlessly until you actually heal. This means that the rats can actually expose your hiding locations to the beast, because they will alarm it due to the sounds. I find the beast's den in the chapel before I go to the pillbox. This is one of the most visually alarming scenes during the entire game. I don't think you could have anticipated walking into this before you physically see it. The beast basically strung up and crucified various members of the bunker. This instantly makes the beast seem more intelligent than we estimated. Before, the beast seemed animalistic, kind of just responding to stimuli when you make a noise. But now it seems more malevolent. Moving on to the pillbox, we finally find the dog tag of a key soldier that will allow us to get to the wrench. Looks like this guy got shot in the face. I kind of wonder how that happened. So I ended up getting stuck in a little bit of a loop. Every time I exited the pillbox, the beast would immediately start patrolling the area nearby. I had almost no tools or resources by that point, and the generator was off when I came to the section. Eventually, I baited him into following me into the fuel area and was able to slip around using a separate tunnel. Editor note, I forgot to mention it, but you take the wrench to the prison to let the prisoner out, and then you grab the bolt cutters to open the arsenal. Yeah, open the arsenal door to the detonator. After grabbing the wrench from a locker, we can finally make our way to the arsenal. In the arsenal, there's basically 2 paths to go down in this section. We have the ability to go grab the dynamite through a storage maze, or we can go grab the detonator handle in the Roman tunnels. I started with getting the detonator. After draining some water in a storeroom, we are able to walk into the Roman tunnels. We find a note about Toussaint Beaufoy going crazy and learn he seems to have removed his eyes himself. And you can even throw them around if you're into that thing. This section of the game marks a big difference compared to what was presented prior. The Roman tunnels are similarly claustrophobic as the rest of the game, but there's a blue tinted mist everywhere. It gives the area a sickly cool vibe. We also find strange floating rock crystal structures around. The game takes a shift from warm, brown, orangey tones into a dark, cool, dingy tunnel. The contrast in visual elements here really push to serve that you feel like you're no longer in the world. The game not only puts you into the past through the Roman architecture, but it takes away your comfort by putting foreign, not quite human things around. This is one of the examples of the optional equipment making a big difference in the game. Once you step into the mist, there are shadow creatures walking around that can spook you. However, if you optionally grab the gas mask earlier in the game with one of the dog tag lockers, you are able to avoid this. The gas mask limits your vision, but prevents the shades from spawning. I actually found this out by accident because I just saw the thick fog and immediately thought to put my mask on. I didn't discover the shades until the following area, when I had walked back in without my mask. Upon further entering the smoke, we hear an unknown character mysteriously singing around the corner. A mysterious melody. As we inch closer towards the sound, we get spooked by a shotgun blast that explodes a rat. This launches us into a boss fight against the mysterious character. You have to navigate the smoky area without getting shot, and try to shoot the boss a few times. The boss will teleport after one shot, so there are some intentionally confusing and disorienting elements to the fight. After hitting the boss a few times, you're finally able to take them down. Upon closer inspection, it was clear that this was the Toussaint guy who took out his eyes. Luckily, he was kind enough to leave us his shotgun, so now we have a new tool to deal with the beasts or unlock some puzzles. During some more exploring of the area, we find some barrels near the back, blocking a mysterious hole. Upon entering, we get our first breath of fresh air since the pillbox. But now we are in the bottom of the sinkhole that Lambert was in the beginning of the game. It's kind of crazy that the bunker was this close to the area the whole time. The area feels almost magical, with a lot of floating rocks and a blue sappy looking liquid. The air has a mysterious element to it. It almost seems like it's making Henri nauseous or dizzy. Nearby the shore of the liquid, we find a dog tag for Lambert and a rabbit toy. I didn't mention it earlier, but this rabbit toy was mentioned in a note we found in the chapel section of the game. It was mentioned that Lambert was carrying it with him to give to his son, because the quickness of a rabbit reminded Lambert of him. This, along with other evidence, combines to our grand reveal, that the beast is actually Lambert, our best friend. The game doesn't say it explicitly, but you can presume that something about the liquid that Henri gave Lambert during the blackout scene of the sinkhole rescue gave him unique properties. He started healing almost immediately after drinking it, enough to where he was able to save an unconscious Henri and get back to the bunker. Throughout various notes around, we also find that he has increasing bloodlust until almost everyone in the bunker is finished. This is important because it turns out that we can use the rabbit to distract the beast for a while. After spotting the rabbit, he will investigate and then run away with it to his chapel nest. You can actually recollect it and distract him again with it later, if you happen to need to use it in a pinch. At this point in the game, you can piece together the main story leading to the beginning of the game through all the notes. Before we get into the story, let's finish up the player events. After leaving the Roman tunnels, we headed down the other path for the arsenal. The beast ended up being very close behind me during this section, but he ended up opening up some paths that helped me get through the area quicker. Apparently, I didn't need to do this at all because there's a way to grab the dynamite through the cage bars. But at least I got to experience the full intended method. Now that we have the detonator and the dynamite, we can finally leave this place and the beast behind. I did some final note searching and optional locker opening before finishing up, just so I could ensure I found everything. After finishing up collecting, we blow the entrance. Just in time to find it not open the entrance. The only thing that happened was that it opened a giant hole in the floor that leads to a cave. Against my better judgment, I hop in and make my way through the cave. We can hear the beast still around us moving in the tunnels while growling. We make our way out of the cave to a huge open arena floating over a giant pit. Around there are a bunch of bridges interconnecting with various statues that make this place kind of seem like it was an important combat arena. This is going to be our final boss fight of the game, kinda. The beast isn't actually killable here, but it can lead you to two slightly different endings. If you knock the beast into the pit by blowing up the bridge under him, you can hear him scream Henri as he falls away, never to be seen again. If you leave him alive and manage to pull some boxes to hop over the wall, you get a different ending. Also, if you fall into the pit, you get a unique death animation where you fall somewhere entirely dark and then a red light kills you or something. I ended up using the rabbit toy to toss onto the bridge and then blasted it away below him, ending with the beast dying. Once dead, you're able to walk up a flight of stairs to finally find your way out of the bunker once and for all. Upon getting to the open area, you start falling into a pit filled with water and dead French soldiers, I think. As the game ends, you see flashlights and hear German soldiers coming to your location. If you left the beast alive, you see him come out of the cave behind you and run off to the left. Then the credits roll. Overall, a fantastic, extremely tight and well-made experience, but as a new player of Amnesia, I don't really get what's happening. I have done some research into the larger story since finishing the game, but for the most part, all I can surmise from the game alone is that there is a mysterious liquid that turned Lambert into some kind of beast. The story in the game is basically just escaping, so the actual intriguing elements are primarily prior to the events of the game starting. After going through all the notes, the story goes something like this. The year is 1916 in April. 2 years into World War I, Henri Clement's unit receives orders to dig deeper into the bunker. They don't discover why until April 30th, when Alex Noyer discovers that the bunker lies above Roman ruins that extend towards the German line. The plan is to use the ruins to launch a surprise attack. During the digging, many soldiers begin to experience psychological symptoms, especially Toussaint Beaufoy, who seems to revel in it. Through translated texts from the Romans, they are able to learn that the tunnels were some kind of ritualistic construction. As the situation escalates, the officers of the bunker eventually start punishing those who are speaking out about the dig. This causes the soldiers to stage a rebellion, with Farber leading it. They intend to cause a cave-in to stop the digging efforts. They are successful, however, Beaufoy ends up going missing, and all those involved get punished with torture by Reynard and Delphi, except Farber. Because none of them involved outed Farber as the leader, this caused the officers to start doing a few things. They gave up on the digging efforts, they punished all of those involved, they ordered more wine, and they started sending the men on more dangerous patrols. Eventually, in July 1916, Henri and Lambert are playing a game of chance to determine who will go on the patrol that evening. The officers suspect them of being part of the group that caused the cave-in, but they don't know for sure. Henri plays a prank by cheating at the game, ensuring that Lambert will go. Unfortunately, this causes Henri to start having increasing guilt as Lambert fails to return for the following day. Henri decides to go save him, which is where the game starts, and eventually finds him in the sinkhole. During the time, he nurses him some water from the pit and pulls him out. They end up getting spotted before escaping, and Henri gets injured by an explosion. Then Lambert carried both of them back to the bunker despite his own injuries that seemed to heal by then. Lambert did take note of how the water was cool, crisp, and had a strangely sweet taste. After Lambert returns, the haunting of the bunker seems to continue despite the digging efforts being paused. Eventually, Reynard was found to be murdered after some screams were heard. His chest cavity was torn to shreds, every rib was cracked, and his head was caved in. Although, no one is certain what could have caused this. One day, while everyone was in the mess hall, the beast emerged. Farber resolved to kill whatever it was himself, and after shooting it, he learned no damage was afflicted, and it returned 10 minutes later to pull him into the wall. The beast then started hunting them, and the soldiers noted that there was a familiar quality about it, almost like it knew them. Eventually, during this, the officers abandoned the remaining men and blow the entrance of the bunker. The only one of them that felt any guilt about it was Jobert, who eventually sends the arsenal code by radio. It is implied that Jobert was likely the most liked and well-received officer from one of the soldier notes. This pretty much concludes the events prior to Henri awakening. The beast at some point was hunting and ritualistically stringing up all the remaining men in the chapel. It's kind of a somber note to end. Once Henri fully awakens, he finds the bunker almost entirely empty, and thus starts the game. With my research, I learned that the mysterious blue liquid is apparently a ghoul juice or something, and originally it turned those who consumed it into ghouls. The juice in the Roman tunnels, though, was tainted by rats, which ended up influencing Lambert's transformation into having more rat-like ghoul qualities. Apparently, there's also some significance in orbs in the series, which kind of reminds me of the Assassin's Creed apples. To be honest, the bunker as a solo project holds well on its own. As a new player, I definitely feel that I am missing some minor connections that would have elevated the story a little bit, but I think the game would have worked fine as a standalone without the Amnesia name. The story is good, but I consider the experimentation and atmosphere to be where the game shined. They crafted an extremely replayable horror experience, which is very difficult to do. The game greatly encourages you to just try things out, and honestly, 9 times out of 10, they just work. I had one example where I was wondering if you could make a petrol bomb by using the fuel in a bottle, and upon my discovery, you literally can just craft one. The update from Halloween also added a great amount of new variability for a new game run, with you being able to customize every difficulty-related spawn and enemy AI. If I got anything out of Amnesia the Bunker, it would be a desire to see what else Frictional has in store for me, or perhaps visit some of their past titles. Alright, that concludes my video on Amnesia the Bunker, a game I really enjoyed, honestly. If you enjoyed the video and everything about it, hit that like and subscribe. I'm trying to hit that 1K subs. My goal for this video was basically just to create interesting shots and effects, so comment if you enjoyed any level of that. Next up, I'm thinking I might do a video on Returnal, a different Amnesia game, or some other small horror game. February is looking to be a big horror month with Reanimal, RE9, and some other games, so got a lot to look forward to. Thank you.